Kaiser here, and today I'm back with a new video, which is my custom Avengers figures, which include Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, and the Hulk. A while back, I actually got Disney Plus because I'm poor, and ever since I've been rewatching Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which I remember watching a while back, like when it first started airing, and it always stuck with me in a way. It's probably my first time I saw the Avengers. And so ever since, I've been a big fan of them, obviously. And so, quite recently, honestly, I decided to go and make a few Avengers customs because, technically speaking, I've had Avengers customs for a while, but they were pretty old, and I felt like remaking a few of them, you know, just kind of bringing them more up to date, really. And so, kind of coincidentally, I started with the 4 main members, that being the ones I listed off earlier. One thing you're going to notice a lot with this video is me saying this custom started simply as, and that's because for literally every single one of them, I had one idea in mind that I was going to do with them, and then over time I changed one thing or another that made the process of making the custom figure just a bit more intuitive. So it took longer to do because I wanted it to be what I wanted, like my preferences. So that's what took so long, and that's also what took so long for this video to come out. But now that I'm finally talking about it, let's get into the work in progress, starting with Captain America. And honestly, he was one of the few figures that was actually pretty easy to do. The base was a Captain America from the Civil War series of Marvel Legends, and for the most part it was just a repaint. And the thing is that for Iron Man and Captain America, I don't really have work in progress pictures, so I'll try my best to explain and show you what I did. But for Cap, it was mostly a repaint, just to give him some brighter blues, some brighter reds, add a bit more white to the costume, basic stuff. And then I went over and sculpted scales on his chest, similar to the design he had in Endgame, and I painted those a lighter blue with a metallic finish. Pretty simple stuff, and on top of that, I also repainted the shield. So he was probably one of the easier ones. I think the only other thing I did was switch out the boots, since I kind of like it when Captain America has more like tactical combat boots. So I took the boots from another Captain America I had, which was the first Avengers, and I replaced the boots from the Civil War figure to the first Avengers. And I think it looks a lot better, honestly. Then, moving on to Iron Man. The Iron Man that I've had for the longest time was actually an old Marvel Legends. It was based off the Mark 6 armor from Iron Man 2, I believe. And so, I really did like that figure, but it was quite small, and it was kind of loose in some places, so it wasn't the best. It was a loose figure after all. So I saw that the Mark III the Mark III Iron Man Marvel Legends figure, I saw that it was pretty cheap somewhere, so I decided to buy it and take parts from the Mark 6 armor and put them with the Mark III. And that's because, like I said, Mark 6 is my favorite Iron Man armor. So I wanted to add in the elements of silver that suit has. And at first I thought it was going to be pretty simple, but then I noticed that the Marvel Legends Mark III armor was actually quite tall. I know that in the suit Tony is like 6'5" or 6'6", I think. But yeah, he was pretty tall, and with the legs, since I thought it was just going to be a simple leg swap, he was a lot taller. So I had to go through a lot of effort of actually shaving down the inside of the Mark 6 legs so that they wouldn't look too awkward on the Mark III suits. And that also goes for the arms, which for the most part were a simple arm swap, but the legs were probably the hardest part. And then after that, I went through and repainted the arms and legs, and that was pretty much it. There wasn't really any modification that I had to do to the actual body. It was all about just switching out the arms and the legs and repainting them. For Thor, however, this is where it gets a bit more complex. So the figure I used for Thor was the Marvel Legends Ragnarok Thor figure, the one that had, I'm trying to remember, like, there was 2 Ragnarok Thors. I think it was the 2-pack one where he didn't have his helmet. So that's the one I got. And what I did was I first started repainting it because, again, I thought it was just going to be a simple repaint. But then I realized that the figure was a bit too tall for my liking. And apparently that is something that a lot of Thor figures do. They're just too tall compared to other characters. So after repainting like almost the entire figure, I had a sigh of relief. As well, not a sigh of relief, I had a sigh of frustration because I had to go back and cut the figure down, sculpt over the cut I made so it wouldn't look awkward, and then repaint it again. So that was kind of a minor bump, but it wasn't too bad, honestly. After that, I added the details of Thor that I liked, such as the big like silver plates that he has on his body. And also the figure actually came with a helmeted head. So what I did was I actually added hair to it because when it comes to a more classic look for Thor, the hair is usually coming down from the helmet. And I think it was from a female figure because it was neon pink and it weirdly looked good on him, but I actually just painted it a golden brown or golden yellow and then went over it with a lighter yellow to get that blonde haired look. And so after that, I also painted on a few other things and added some other things. I added like a loincloth piece to the front of it just because I think that would look nice. And then I painted a more of a metallic blue onto the body to kind of show like electricity surging through it, since I just thought that would be a nice touch. And a few other things I did were getting some acetone and getting rid of the markings on his head, since again that version of Thor had the gladiator markings. And I also repainted the helmet to a more classic silver. So for the most part, kind of simple. There were a few bumps in the road, but I was able to, get through them and come out with a pretty good looking Thor. A lot better than the one I've had for all this time. And now we move on to Hulk. His body was made from, the figure started off as a Gamerverse Avengers Hulk, the gray one with the beard. And once again with Thor, I thought it was just going to be a simple repaint. But something in my mind was telling me that something had to change about this Hulk. And once I actually started going through and working on him, I realized that I wanted him to look a bit more muscular. And that mostly came in the lower legs and the shoulder. The lower legs were a bit more reasonable because the pants were sculpted there. So I kind of had to sand them down and resculpt them because... spoiler alert, I had cloth pants for this Hulk. But for the shoulders, that's honestly because I just thought the shoulders he had originally were a bit too small, and I wanted this Hulk to look a bit bigger. So I added a bunch of clay onto the shoulders to make it look a bit more muscular. And with this Hulk in particular, I was very focused on making sure there wasn't any paint rub. So what I did was I took a green Sharpie and pretty much colored in all of his joints to make sure that there wasn't any paint chipping. And this actually worked kind of well. It is kind of noticeable. You can see that the green on the joints is like a darker shade of green than the body. But I don't think it's too bad. And when you move the joints around, there isn't really any chipping on them, so I'm glad that worked out. And that also goes for the shoulders, since I had to Dremel into the socket and sand down the shoulders to make sure that there wouldn't be any paint rub when I moved them around. So after doing all of that, I finally got into painting. And for the shade of green that I went with, it's kind of an emerald green, I think so. I'm not too familiar on what shades of green there are, but it is kind of like a somewhat dark green. And then I went over it with a lighter green to kind of give Hulk's body some depth. And then after that, I pretty much worked on the head and the hands, which were also simple repaints. And I also added a light, more like a vanilla color to the toes and the fingernails. Just, again, to add in a bit more detail to Hulk. And then came the pants, which my grandma actually helped me make, since I'm not quite good with making clothes. And after she had finished them, I went in and pretty much destroyed them, adding rips and tears and stuff. And I used a spandex material because for a big guy like Hulk, you want him to be able to move around in them. And it would be pretty accurate since his pants seem to be the only thing that actually stay on whenever he transforms. And you can see on the figure, they actually look pretty good. And that is all the Avengers that I worked on so far. It was a lot, especially since, again, coincidentally, I just decided to work on all of them at the same time. But I'm really happy with how all of them came out. I say they are they're definitely an improvement over the previous Avenger figures that I had. So with that, let's get into some of the general talking points of the figure. And here we have all 4 of them together, and I really like how they look. One thing I noticed is that all of them seem to have like this modern yet classic look to them. Since I guess in my head, I just like how the classic designs look, and I wanted to see how they how they would look in a more modern sense, kind of like with the Stark Homecoming suit for Spider-Man. I don't know, that's just me. I just kind of noticed that all of them keep like this classic color scheme and elements to them while still looking modern enough to fit in with the day. That's just me. But starting with Captain America, there's not really much to go over in terms of what else I did to it. A few things that I didn't explain in the work in progress is, one, I did add a bit more red to the outfit, such as on the gloves here and on the bottom of his boots. Simple stuff, really. I did add a bit more white, such as on the on the arms, just to add a bit more color, since the Civil War suits really had like a lot of blue. Not as much as others, but it was pretty much all over the sleeves, and the blue in terms of color was too dark for my liking. So that's why I decided to go ahead and repaint it, just to brighten them up a bit, make it feel a bit more like a, Captain America suit, at least to me. And of course there is the shield, which I did repaint. So there's not really much to go over, but we do have a few accessories for him, if I can get him to stand. Nope, alright, hold up. There we go. So one of them is an alternate head that is actually from the first Avengers figure, the same one I used the boots for, and I will show you how it looks on him now. There we go. So this is what the first Avenger head looks, or how it looks on him. You can see that it is probably a bit small, and the neck does look a bit weird, but I don't think it looks too bad. And it's nice to have an alternate head for Captain America in terms of like a different looking helmet piece. And he also comes with 2 pairs, or he comes with a extra gripping hand, as you can see. And he also comes with an extra fist. And actually, for the longest time, 2 of my most wanted Captain America figures were the Marvel Legends Marvel Now Captain America and the Age of Ultron Captain America. Mostly because those are my 2 favorite designs for him, and they come with a few different accessories that I thought would look good for Captain America. But I'm still really happy with the one I have now, and if I ever do find those accessories, I'll probably, buy them so I can use them for this one. So that's Captain America. Next up is Iron Man, and as you can see, it's a pretty classic look, which is what a lot of the earlier suits did. And like I said, I did want to give him some of the silver accents that he had with his Mark 6 suit, which are mostly on the legs and on the arms here. I don't know why, but I always liked that choice when it came to the Mark 6 suit, and I think Mark 7 too. Just adding a bit of, like, those few bits of silver made it look a bit more homemade, or just more like this is an actual like suit built by someone. Like this is supposed to be like iron or titanium. That's just how I always felt about it. And one thing I also forgot to mention in the work in progress is that since the Mark 3 feet are different from the Mark 6 feet or the figure, what I did was I pretty much took the feet off of those and once again drilled into the legs in order to get this to stay in there. That also goes for the thighs here. As you can see, I have to drill pretty deep in there, and it's a pretty snug fit for the legs here, so it won't be popping out, and it still looks good. And that also goes for the arms here, as you can see. I will admit that the gold that I used doesn't quite match the like more I'm not sure what you call it, antique gold. I'll call it that. It's just more of a yellowish gold than this one, but I still think it looks pretty good. The accessories he has are pretty much the same as the Mark III, since obviously he comes with this unmaxed head, and I have to say, it's a pretty good looking like Robert Downey Jr. head. I will still probably try and find a fully unmaxed head, because while this is good, it isn't quite the same. And a pair of hands that he does come with actually come from the Mark VI, that being these two. And he also comes with another repulsor blast hand, the same as this one, another fist, I should say. And he comes with these two like forearm pieces. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be. I haven't watched the movie, so I'm not exactly sure. And he also comes with a pair of missiles. The only problem is that since this doesn't have the peg hole, which those are supposed to plug into, I can't really use them. But I could probably drill a hole and use the little cover piece in order to, you know, still use those accessories and still have it look nice, since having a giant hole there would just kind of look weird. But that's all for Iron Man. Now let's get into Thor. And Captain America just fell. I'm moving over here real quick. There we go. So for Thor, this is probably my favorite out of all of them so far. One design preference that I've always had with Thor is that if you have Thor in a helmet, in my opinion, he looks better with a clean face, like not really a beard. But if you have his hair out, then you can go with the beard all you want. But ever since I worked on this figure, I have to say that the helmet and beard combo is honestly growing on me. I think this actually looks pretty good. It's probably because it's Chris Evans and he just made Thor pretty iconic, except for that one time we don't talk about. But yeah, it looks pretty good. As you can see, the hair is that golden brown mixed with not mixed, but the lighter brown on top. And for the most part, it's a pretty classic design in terms of how I wanted Thor to look. He has the black torso, the blue pants, and the like yellow wrappings around the boots. That's honestly my favorite look for Thor, and again, that's probably because I've been watching Earth's Mightiest Heroes, but it looks pretty good. As you can see, I used some fake gems to get those little circle armor platings that he has, and I made them silver, gold, bronze. I kept the the shoulder pad here just because I thought it would fit. Obviously, there isn't too much that I did to the arms, but the legs is where the biggest modification came, because if you can see, there is a cut where I cut the legs in order to shorten them, because like I said before, it was too big. So we'll put Iron Man here, and you can see that while Thor is still taller than Iron Man, before he was probably like all the way up here, and it didn't look as good, so that's why I decided to shorten him. And I say he looks a lot better for it. The proportions are definitely a lot better. And another thing I forgot to mention is the cape. This is actually from my old Thor figure, and what I did essentially was I ripped it off the old Thor figure I had, and fixed up a few things, and pretty much used it for this one. And the way I got it into the figure was, if I can get it out. Yeah, there we go. As you can see, there is a hole that I drilled into. Or, more so, there was a hole previously, but I covered it, waited for the clay to dry, and then drilled into it. And I drilled pretty deep, almost into like the shoulder peg itself. But it was just enough where I can peg the cape in like this, and it will have a pretty snug fit. So I can pose it, and it won't come out easily. And that's pretty much what I did for the same side. So the cape is pretty much removable. And I'm really glad that I was able to do that, since the cape was probably the biggest part of the figure that I wanted to get right, since that cape is pretty iconic. And I'm glad that I was able to use that old cape for this new Thor figure. And in terms of accessories, Thor only really comes with one, which is Mjolnir, which again is also from the previous Thor figure. I didn't really change anything about it. I just stuck it on this new figure, and yeah, it looked pretty well. Now we'll move all of them out of the way to make room for the Hulk, and here we have Hulk, and I had to fix my stand up a little so that I could actually get to his face. Excuse me. Like I said before, this was supposed to be a pretty simple repaint, but me being me, decided to do some modifications and stuff just to have that preferred Hulk figure I wanted. As you can see for the face, it's pretty much the same as the original. I have to say that Green Hulk with a beard honestly looks really good. It was pretty hard painting around the eyes since I didn't want to change those. I didn't really want to go through the effort of repainting them because that would have been a nightmare. So I did try my best to paint around them, and I think I did pretty good. And for the rest of the body, as you can see on the joints here, if the camera could zoom in, you can see how they're a different color from the actual body, but when you move them, no chipping. And that also goes for the shoulder itself. I can move it pretty much any way I want, and there's barely any chipping. It does get a bit hard to put it down, but I'm really glad that I was able to avoid paint chipping on probably the biggest parts of the figure. And that also goes for the pants here. I wanted to keep a classic type of look for Hulk's pants, so I cut like two big like jagged cuts into the knees, and I cut the bottoms up to make it all ripped and torn. I also cut a bit in here just for the hell of it. And if I can take these off just a bit, you can see that the original legs are still there. And another thing that I forgot to mention, I will pull these down a bit more. I hope this doesn't look wrong. As you can see, I cut a bit into the legs so that you could get more movement out of them. And I did that because even though the arms are, even though the pants are from a spandex material, I still wanted to make sure he would get a lot of movement out of them. And obviously you can. As you can see, the legs can go that far forward, and they can go pretty out to the side. So yeah, and hopefully again, that didn't look wrong, but if you want, just think of them as Hulk's underwear, I guess. And another thing that I decided to add was the original like ripped arm pieces. I think that actually looks pretty good for this Hulk, like since it's always been just Hulk's the pants, obviously. Since it's always been Hulk's pants that are intact, I think having the remnants of whatever shirt he was wearing add a bit more clothing and just kind of look a bit cooler, honestly. And for accessories, once again, they're what came with the figure. This was the Angry Head that, once again, I repainted. And he comes with, like, two, like, angry gesturing hands, like these clawed hands, I guess you can call them, which are also repainted. So yeah, that's all of Hulk's accessories, and I'm not really going to get into the articulation because all of them, for the most part, have the same type of articulation. These are all Marvel Legends, so getting into the articulation would kind of be redundant, since again, it is all the same, but we will get into size comparison. And here are the Avengers standing next to some other members, that being Black Panther, Black Widow, Ant-Man, and War Machine. I wanted to get all my Avengers / Marvel figures out, but I decided to not do that since that would have just taken a while, and use some of the other members that we've seen. I'd say that they look really good, and I'd say they fit in pretty well with some of the characters that are, obviously from the MCU, like Black Widow and Black Panther really look like, they don't look out of place with the custom figures. They actually look pretty good. And I would definitely say that War Machine, or at least this version of War Machine, looks pretty cool next to a more classic looking Iron Man. Yeah, I'm really happy with how these figures came out, and if you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I have a pretty big love for Marvel and DC. I need to do more DC figures, but hopefully that will come later. I'm just really glad that I was able to get some more definite, like, definitive versions of these characters, and I'm really glad that I was able to make them, because I'm honestly really proud of how these came out, and I hope you guys enjoyed them as well. I do have a few other Marvel customs that are coming. One of them should be pretty obvious, so I'll be happy to make that video soon. But for now, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.